Glacier Watch.
Carmen Melvin is from Miami, Florida. She's on vacation in Alaska, and she's taken a flight-seeing trip to a glacier. The helicopter has landed on the glacier.
This way. Watch where you're going, please. Our insurance company doesn't want you to hurt yourselves.
This is incredible.
Isn't it great? Oh, watch your step, and stay close by me. That is, unless you want to fall into a crevice. There are crevices hundreds of feet deep over there. We're going to begin by walking over to look at them.
There's so much ice. And they keep telling us about global warming, you know, that the Earth is getting hotter.
Well, I've been doing this job for 5 years, and the glacier has retreated. It used to be half a mile longer.
Oh, really?
Sure. Unless it begins snowing more during the winters, it'll be gone in 50 years.
What's the reason for that?
We can't say. Farther north, some glaciers are still advancing. Maybe it's the local weather here in southeast Alaska, not the world climate. Unless we do more research, we won't know.
People say it's the greenhouse gases. You know, if every car carried one more passenger, the United States would use less gasoline.
Well, maybe. If everyone planted 1 tree a year, things would improve. And if we all walked instead of driving, the air would be cleaner. And I guess we'd all be healthier. But you can't measure it, really.
So, in 50 years' time, this will all be gone?
Right. Unless the winters start getting colder.
Colder winters? How do you feel about that here in Alaska? Aren't they cold enough for you?
Sure. But I wouldn't live here unless I liked snow and ice. And tourists wouldn't come here unless there were glaciers. And believe me, we need the tourist business. What would you have done?
The Reader's Page. What would you have done? Last week, we invited you, the readers, to write and tell us about things that had happened to you, or things that you had heard about. We wanted stories where people just didn't know what to do next. Here are the stories that interested us the most. That's my coffee. Or was.
I was at a counter in a restaurant in a small western town. I had just been served a cup of coffee. Suddenly, this huge man, he looked like a boxer, came over, picked up my coffee, drank it, banged the cup down on the table, stared at me, and then walked away without saying anything. I suppose I should have said something, but I was scared stiff. I didn't know what to do. What would you have done? Stanley Wempy, Carbondale, Illinois.
In deep water. I was driving through Oregon on my vacation. It was a very hot day, and I stopped at a small, deserted beach. I didn't have my bathing suit with me, but it was early in the morning, and there were no people or houses in sight. So I took off my clothes and swam out in the ocean in my underwear. I'm a very strong swimmer. I floated on my back, closed my eyes, and relaxed in the water. When I looked back at the beach, several cars had arrived, and there were 20 or 30 people sitting on the sand having a picnic. What would you have done? Jane Dare, Spokane, Washington. That's a no-no.
I heard a great story about the Reverend Billy Cracker. He'd gone to London to speak at a large meeting. Anyway, when he stepped off the plane, there were a lot of reporters and TV cameras. The first question one of the reporters asked was, "Do you intend to visit any nightclubs in London?" Reverend Cracker smiled at the reporter. "Are there any nightclubs in London?" he answered innocently. The next morning, the headline in one of the London papers was, "Cracker's first question on arrival in London, are there any nightclubs?" How would you have felt? Reverend Oral Richards, Columbia, South Carolina.
Strangers in the Night.
My story isn't funny at all. It was a very frightening experience. You see, one night I woke up suddenly, I heard the tinkle of broken glass from downstairs, and I heard the window opening. Then I heard two voices. My wife woke up too. She told me to do something. A couple of days before, there had been a report about a burglary in the local paper. The burglars had been interrupted, and they had beaten up the homeowner. They'd nearly killed him. I was trembling with fear. I just didn't know what to do. In the end, I didn't go down, and they stole the sterling silverware we had inherited from my mother. Was I right? What would you have done? Lorenzo Machado, Abilene, Texas.
Deep fried.
I had parked my car at a local shopping mall, and I was taking a shortcut through the side door of a restaurant. Halfway across the restaurant, I spotted my father eating a hamburger and French fries. He often eats there. I sneaked up behind him, put my hand over his shoulder, took a French fry off the plate, dipped it in the ketchup, and ate it. Then I realized that the man was not my father. I was so embarrassed. I couldn't say a word. What would you have done? Cheryl Redburn, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
A bad day at the office.
What was wrong this morning?
Wrong? What do you mean?
You walked straight past me.
Really? Where?
By that newsstand on First Street.
I'm really sorry, Amy. I just didn't see you.
Come on, Tim. You must have. I was waving.
No, honestly, I didn't see you. If I had seen you, I would have said hello.
Tim, have you sent that fax to Japan?
No, I haven't.
Why haven't you done it yet? It's urgent.
Because you didn't ask me to do it.
I didn't?
No, you didn't. If you had asked me, I'd have sent it.
Achoo!
What's the matter, Debbie? You don't look well.
No, I've had a terrible cold. It's better today, though.
I had a bad cold last week.
I know, and you gave it to everyone in the office. I wouldn't have come to work if I'd had a cold like that.
Tim, did you type this letter or did Akiko?
I did. Is there something wrong?
Take a look. This should be $400,000. You typed $40,000.
Oops. I'm really sorry.
And the customer's name should be Snelling, not Smelling.
Oh, no. Did I put that?
If I hadn't noticed it, we could have lost the order.
Hi, Tim. Did you have a good day today?
No, not really. I'm glad it's over. Everything went wrong.
Really?
Yeah. I made a lot of mistakes in typing, then I forgot to send a fax, and Amy got upset because I ignored her on the street.
Why was that?
If I hadn't gone to bed late, it wouldn't have been such an awful day.
A Saturday afternoon.
Laura felt slightly uneasy as the guard unlocked the gates and waved her through. The Blitzkopf Clinic was, after all, the most exclusive institution of its type in the country. She parked her car outside the main entrance of the sterile white main building. She paused on the steps to look at the beautiful flower gardens. An old man was watering the flower bed beside the steps. He smiled at her.
Good afternoon. Are you a new patient?
Oh, I'm not a patient. I'm just here to do some research. I wonder if you could tell me the way to Dr. Blitzkopf's office?
Certainly. Just go through the main door, turn left, walk down to the end of the hall, and it's the last door on the right.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Blitzkopf was expecting her. He had been looking forward to meeting his new research assistant. Dr. Blitzkopf showed her around. He was obviously very proud of his clinic, and Laura was impressed by the relaxed and informal atmosphere. For the next few weeks, Laura spent the mornings interviewing patients and the afternoons in the flower gardens, writing up the results of her research. Some of the patients were withdrawn and depressed. Some seemed almost normal. She found it hard to believe that all of them had been considered too dangerous to live in normal society. Laura often saw the old man in the straw hat. He spent most of his time working in the flower gardens, but he always stopped to speak to her. She found out that his name was Edward Beale. He was a gentle and mild-mannered man, with clear blue, honest eyes, white hair, and a pinkish complexion. He always looked pleased with life. She became particularly curious about him. One night, at dinner, she asked about Mr. Beale.
Ah, yes, Edward. Nice old guy. He's been here longer than anybody.
What's wrong with him?
Nothing. His family put him here 40 years ago. They never come to visit him, but the bills are always paid on time.
But what had he done?
He burned down his school when he was 17. Over the next few years, there were a number of mysterious fires in his neighborhood, but the family did nothing until he tried to set fire to the family mansion. He was in here the next day. Edward never protested.
And that was 40 years ago?
I'm afraid so.
But he couldn't still be dangerous.
No. If he wanted to start a fire, he could have done it at any time.
Laura was shocked by the story. She wrote letters to Edward's family, but never received a reply. He had never been officially certified as insane, so he could leave at any time. Dr. Blitzkopf let her talk to Edward.
Edward, have you ever thought about leaving this place?
No, this is my home. And anyway, I have nowhere else to go.
But wouldn't you like to go into town sometimes?
I suppose it would be nice, but I wouldn't want to stay away for long. I've spent 40 years working on this garden. What would happen to it if I weren't here?
Laura realized that it would be unkind to make him leave. But when she found out that the next Saturday was his birthday, she arranged with the staff to give him a party. They wanted it to be a surprise, and Dr. Blitzkopf agreed to let him go out for the afternoon. Edward left at 2:00. He seemed quite excited. They expected him to return about 4:00. The cook had made a birthday cake. Laura was standing in the window when she saw him. He was walking up the drive toward the house, whistling cheerfully. Behind him, above the trees, thick, black columns of smoke were beginning to rise slowly into the clear blue sky.